Japan did it. They are on top of the baseball world after a 3-2 victory over Team USA in Miami at Lone Depot Park. Even though Team USA had some strong victories throughout the tournament, Japan was able to capitalize on their weaknesses. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm your host, Chris Machado, and joined alongside me to unpack this further is Allie, Wenskoski and Adrianna Gallucci. Let's get into it. So, the final game itself, a 3-2 victory, Team Japan over Team USA. Allie, what'd you take away from it?
Yeah, just like you said, Japan won 3-2 over the U.S. in the final game, and it was just one game, which is special to the World Baseball Classic. It's not like MLB where there's a series. It's just one game, winner take all, and that's how this finale was. And it really came down to that final inning. Obviously, it came down to Shotani and Mike Trout, the best of the best pitcher versus best hitter at the plate, and Shotani was able to do it. He was able to strike out Mike Trout in just 4 pitches, and it was a great showing for Team Japan. So the question now is why? Why did Japan make it over the USA? And it came down to their bullpen, actually. Their starters, Shota and Manga, pitched the first 2 and only gave up 1 run in those 2 innings. And then they used 7 other pitchers, 6 of who were starters. So that really was why they were able to come over USA. And then US just left too many runners on the base pass. They were 0 for 7 when it came to runners in scoring position. And that even goes down to the final inning when McNeil got on first in a leadoff walk, and then Mookie Betts just hit into a double play, and then it was left to Mike Trout, who just couldn't come up with the win.
And you mentioned the bullpens. I really think that was Team USA's their bad line in this tournament, especially Wainwright having a horrible WBC. I think we could all agree to that. And yeah, the at-bat with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, I mean, he sees 3 100-mile-per-hour fastballs all go by him, and then Ohtani throws 102 in the dirt, the setup pitch for that 87-mile-per-hour slider. No way Trout was going to hit that. So one bad thing, though, that did come out of the WBC was fans being angry at players getting injured. I remember the biggest one that I saw was Edwin Diaz for Team Puerto Rico, closer for the New York Mets. A lot of Mets fans leaving a lot of nasty comments, saying things like he needs to care more about the team he plays for than the country he represents. And just a message to those fans, I'd kind of like to see what you would do if the opportunity presented itself for you to represent your country. So, Adrianna, what do you have to say about that?
All I'm saying is if I was a baseball player and Team USA or Team Italy came knocking at my door asking me to wear my country's colors and carry my country's flag, I would 100% say yes. Baseball is something that is so much bigger than just the 162 games in the MLB season. You look at countries that have this huge MLB presence like Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, the USA itself. But then also in this World Baseball Classic, we saw a resurgence of these teams that aren't these World Baseball Classic powerhouses. We saw the Czech Republic bringing in doctors, engineers, teachers, these everyday average Joes jumping on the opportunity to wear their country's colors. You look at Team Italy, who went viral for having an espresso machine in the dugout and wearing the cornicello, which is something very special to Italians, wearing that on their cleat. So it's something that's just more than going and playing for a few weeks with people from your country. It's having fans come from Japan, Venezuela, all over the country, coming out to Miami, Lone Depot Park, a place that is, by the way, never full because of the Marlins, having it absolutely packed. So it's something that is so much more than going and risking an injury for this little tournament. It's something that's special to players, and freak accidents happen. This was something that was not supposed to happen by any means. This was a freak accident, and for everybody who's complaining that players got injured during the World Baseball Classic, players also got injured in spring training too. And players are going to get injured in the regular season and in the postseason. It just happens in sports.
And you mentioned spring training. Nobody really complaining about those, especially on social media. But one good thing I will say about the WBC, and it brought life back to baseball. So obviously the WBC did not implement the MLB 2023 rule changes that are going to be for this season. So I want to know from both of you, did the WBC show the MLB that, hey, you do not need these changes to have entertaining baseball?
I personally think it did. I'm just a traditionalist. I do not like the rule changes that the MLB implemented, but they're here and they're here to stay, I think. So let's get into a little bit of those rule changes, and the biggest one is the pitch clock coming in for the MLB 2023 season. So there are a lot of rules when it comes to the pitch clock, but the main gist of it is just that it is 20 seconds if there is a runner on base, 15 seconds if there is no runners on base, and the batter must be ready by the 8-second mark. Also, there's only 2 disengagements, so the pitcher can only step off of the rubber or throw a pickoff attempt twice in an at-bat. But there's a little caveat with that one. If the runners advance, like say someone on first was to steal second, then this resets and they get another 2 disadvantages. But other than that, there's been a lot of rule changes. And I just think it's going to show that, MLB fans want a longer game. I know that's my opinion. However, I think a lot of people have this opinion. They tried it out in the minor leagues last year and a few years previous, and games averaged 2 hours and 38 minutes. While last year in the major leagues, games averaged 3 hours and 3 minutes. So it's about a 25-minute difference, and that makes a big difference, especially if you're to go to a game. I personally would want that extra 25 minutes to enjoy as a fan. It's just like being in a concert, you don't want the performer to end 25 minutes early, so you don't want your favorite team to.
Look, if I'm paying an arm and a leg to go to a major league ballpark and I'm, spending a lot of money on these nice seats, I want to go and I want to be there as long as possible. I want to soak in the experience, things that you don't get to do every day. But by adding in that pitch clock and taking away that extra 25 minutes, that's 25 minutes of my time that I don't get to spend seeing there. And not just only from a fan standpoint, we've seen problems with the pitch clock already in spring training. Manny Machado, one of the best hitters in the game right now, was the first player to receive a pitch clock violation. The Cat was 0-1 before he even stepped into the batter's box. So for me, it's not so much about the MLB needs to implement these new rules to try to bring in a younger generation of baseball fans. This is the generation of baseball fans that have grown up with technology. They don't have a long attention span. They can't go and they can't sit there for 3 hours and watch a baseball game. But it's not so much about changing the game. Maybe it's finding new ways to bring in that demographic. Maybe it's marketing to different demographics. If the MLB wants to bring in more people, this is not the way to do it.
Yeah, and I have to totally agree. Like, Allie, you said, traditional, you don't really want a timer on a game, especially if you're spending your hard-earned money to be there in the seats. But now, opening day, 3 days away. At the time of us recording this, it is March 27th, and opening day is March 30th. So, what I want to know from both of you again, what are you excited for?
Personally, for me, I'm really excited to see baseball in New York. It's the teams that are closest to me personally, and there are just so many new stars that have come to New York for both sides. For the New York Mets, bringing in Kodai Senga from Japan, bringing Justin Verlander from the Houston Astros. Huge changes in their pitching, especially with the absence of Jacob deGrom now. You're going to see big stars again like Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, and you're also going to see the New York Mets of the future. Brett Baty, Mark Vientos, Francisco Alvarez. Although they're starting their seasons in Syracuse, I think that you can bring up Alvarez as a DH, or you could use Baty and Vientos somewhere in the infield, but that's for them to figure out down the line. For the New York Yankees, a big congratulations goes out to Anthony Volpe for making their opening day roster. Actually, when I was in high school, Anthony Volpe played in my baseball's conference, so I was able to see him live a few years ago, and the hype that's around Anthony Volpe right now reminds me of the same hype that was around Aaron Judge about 5-6 years ago, so I think it's going to be a very competitive year for baseball in New York.
I completely agree with you, Adrianna. I am really excited for New York baseball. I am a New York Mets fan. However, I just think those two teams really level it up and step up and show the rest of the MLB what it's like to play baseball in a great city. But I'm going to move on to a little of a lesser topic, but there were some spring training injuries that I think we need to address because they're going to be very important as we start opening day. So to start it off, the Phillies fell early with Rhys Hoskins getting out on an ACL tear. So he's going to undergo surgery, and they're still not pretty sure a timeline. However, they think he's going to be out for the entire season. So Phillies falling early, just like the New York Mets do not have Edwin Diaz. Those are two major components of their team that is going to be crushing losses. And then also Wander Franco. This is a little newer one. This past weekend, he actually had some injury problems and was out of Saturday's spring training lineup, but he should be back for opening day, so that is good news for him. However, Tyler Glasnow, as we know, is going to be out as well. He's probably going to return around early May, if I had to say. That's the best estimates, but he's been out for a month now on a grade 2 oblique strain, and he started pitching on flat ground, which is great news for him. However, they are going to be missing him as the season starts.
Well, you heard it best. That's going to do it for this segment here on Penn State Sports Night. Tell us what your favorite WBC moment was down in the comments below as we await those magical words, play ball. So, for Allie Wenskoski and Adrianna Gallucci, I'm Chris Machado. Thank you for watching and have a good night.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning into this edition of Penn State Sports Night. We hope you liked that segment.
And we're sure there's other Penn State Sports Night segments that you are going to love as well. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.
And check us out on social media for updates and behind the scenes clips and pics. Follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action.
For all of us here at the Belisari Media Center, we are
Penn State Sports Night.